Welcome everybody. I'm Shalina, founder of Rising Woman, and today I have two legends with me. We have Harville Hendrix and Helen LaKelly Hunt. Welcome guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate being invited. And I'm reacted to legend. That means you're sort of old.
Dead.
You're very much alive, but
We have come back to life for your show. We are so glad we got a chance to meet you late last fall, early winter.
yeah.
And it's nice to see you again. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I say legend because I've been reading your books and studying your work for over a decade. And I'd say your work was sort of the entry point for me to conscious relationship, getting the love you want, and a lot of your teachings. And you guys sharing your personal stories and just making the struggle so real for all of us so that we can see, you know, the vulnerability and the authenticity that is relationship. And so I'm just so grateful for you guys and everything that you've created in the world to help people connect more to themselves and to each other and to make relationships a safer place.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And appreciate your helping us get the word out.
You know, I know you should start with the first statement, but I'm going to jump in.
Do.
You say making relationships a safer place. I love Harville's way he phrases things. And about 5 years ago, he said, you know, talking is the most dangerous thing people do. I thought, well, that's an interesting way to think about it. And it is. Like, you have no idea that you said something that upset somebody else, and it's dangerous. And so yes, we're honored to be here to talk about how to turn conflictual relationships into peaceful ones.
Yeah, I love that. And it is so true that talking is quite dangerous, and listening is actually a skill that we don't come into the world with. It's something that we have to develop, but not just listening to respond, but really listening to understand. And I think that's something that the two of you teach and do really well. So I'd kind of like to just talk a little bit about the Imago Principles in general and just help people understand, you know, what is an Imago partner? What's happening when we're drawing in somebody who seems perfect at first and then turns out to be, you know, a version of our worst nightmare.
Yes.
Conflict.
Yeah. Well, it was a mystery to us at the beginning because when we met in 1977, our first conversations were around why do couples fight? And those conversations were stimulated by the fact that we both were divorced at the time, a little bit longer. I think mine divorced a little longer than Helen's, but we got together and we were talking about, you know, we're both professionals, and here we are in the field, and here we are both divorced. And so we went to the abstract question that was actually raised in a classroom by students, which is why do couples fight? Why does the dream become a nightmare?
Yeah.
And it struck us that would be a good research question. So we researched it for about 8 years and wrote Getting the Love You Want, the Guide for Couples. So what we worked out as in interviewing couples is that the problematic that turns the dream into a nightmare is that we unconsciously are attracted to someone in adulthood who is close to, we call it a facsimile, a reasonable facsimile of the caretaker in childhood with whom we had the most difficulty, the one who was least responsive to our needs. And while that didn't make any sense, why would you be attracted to somebody who's least responsive to your needs? The unconscious doesn't make any sense. I mean, it actually turned out it does make sense, but it didn't make any sense initially. But what that leaves is a need not met.
Yeah.
And the unconscious, and that needs connected to survival. So at the deep unconscious level, our brains say, you gotta finish this. You got to get that need met, or you're going to die. You don't know what's going to happen. And it's all kind of It's not in conscious. You don't have those conscious conversations. It's all going on at the unconscious level. So there's a sensor we call the Imago that scans the environment for somebody similar to the person with whom you had the most difficulty, similar to the one with whom you had the most difficulty in childhood. And when you see them, it goes, bing, there that person is. And we call that romantic love. Mm-hmm. And then you get with that person and you begin to expect them to function like the caretaker did not function. Mm. But since they're similar to the caretaker who did not function, they don't function the way you expect them to function. And therefore you start saying, well, hey, where is that? You know, when are you going to do that? And why were you late? And when are you going to look at me or call me or give me a present or remember my birthday or whatever the complaint is? You're not there for me like my caretaker was not there for me. And so that produces what we call the power struggle. And that then becomes the problematic that we finally developed Imago Therapy to respond to. Mm-hmm. But it was a fascinating mystery. And we thought initially when we figured that out, I know I had this feeling, I'm not going to be a couples therapist. There's no point in going into a business where it's going to fail. Because if you fall in love with somebody similar to the people with whom you didn't get what you needed in childhood, you're not going to get it with them. So, but finally it dawned on us, actually probably took 2 years to figure out, actually, what's supposed to happen now is you are supposed to discover what that need is that you are not providing, which is similar to what the caretaker didn't provide, and start providing that mutually for each other. Mm-hmm. Then that meets the need and grows you beyond your own childhood limitations. Mm-hmm. So that falling in love with somebody like that is the best thing that could happen to you. And apparently nature set it up so that that tension would occur. Mm-hmm. So, because it's only, you only grow and change through tension, like we're doing now with COVID. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many things we're doing that we would never have done without the tension of the possibility of death. Mm-hmm. But we're changing stuff. So that tension produces the energy to go. And so couples, what we've learned is to say to couples, you have two choices: grow together or stay in conflict forever, or get a divorce or whatever. But the only reasonable and what nature set you up to do was to mutually respond to each other's unmet childhood need. That will grow you into your next personal level of personal growth. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's a long answer, but that's the mystery that Imago finally resolved and was developed to manage.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully explained. It really is, we're becoming partners in each other's healing, aren't we?
That's right. You're becoming partners. And if you do that instead of opponents, then you get the outcome of a partnership instead of a war. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's speak to the war piece, I think, because what happens when we get into the power struggle, so we come into a relationship with all of these expectations that, you know, you're going to give me all of those things that I didn't get when I was young. It's not a conscious thing. We're not actually picking the person and saying, you remind me of my mother. It's really unconscious. We don't notice it at all. In fact, we might think that this person is different than anyone we've ever met. Yes. Until we go deep. And so what happens is there's actually a lot of weight. There's a lot of expectation, and there's a lot of attachment going on to having something provided for us. And so it hurts even more when we don't get it, because it's like being, you know, dropped off of a cliff, you know, of our expectations. And so the war comes in when we're unconsciously projecting that caregiver or that parent or that somebody who didn't give us what we needed onto our partner. So now we're opponents. Right? I'm sure you guys have worked with, you know, hundreds or thousands of couples who are fighting with each other as if they're each other's worst enemy and really not seeing each other's hearts. So, you know, what can we do when we're in those moments to sort of catch ourselves and sort of snap ourselves out of that state?
Yeah. So you want to go with that, or shall I? I'll take that.
Well, I'll say something brief and then you can continue.
Okay.
So what I loved, Harville said something when we were dating. I was in I was in training to be a therapist, and I was learning about primal therapy, where at the time in the 70s and 80s, people would lay down and go back into childhood and, just sort of relate to but their parents, and sort of, it was a cathartic experience of get your feelings out.
Mm-hmm.
And Harville was lecturing that there are 3 stages of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 1, romance, romantic love. Stage 2, the power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes from stage 1 to stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
And there is stage 3. And if you do certain things, stage 3 is real love. And if you do a few things, you can move out of stage 2 and into stage 3, which is real love.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how you said early on, everybody goes. I mean, it's sort of like when you're in the power struggle, you think, they tricked me. They were so nice when we were dating, and I had no idea they were like that. Well, that's how everybody feels.
Yeah.
And so I loved how Harville was normalizing such a big issue.
Yeah.
Everybody moves from romance into conflict. And we began to language that conflict isn't a bad thing. Conflict is growth trying to happen. Because then with a few little things, if you put that in a relationship, you get to stage 3. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah. Well, and to build on that, to your question about what to do when you discover you're into this is really very simple. Finally got very simple. If you have the same fight 3 times with the same outcome 3 times, you're dealing with a childhood issue.
Yes.
And if you just know that, then you know this is not about your relationship. Your relationship was an occasion to activate unconscious childhood memories. And with those memories, certain needs. And until those needs are met, they're going to show up every day and in a variety of different ways. But it'll always be the same need. You didn't call me. When are you going to call me? When are you going to hug me? Look at me when we talk. Why don't you invite me for, it's going to be what the...
Can you give me some space?
Can you give me some space?
Could you just be quiet?
Yes, that's mine. I need
yeah, he was just being me and I'm being him. So one person typically is the maximizer, and they express who they are by talking about it. And their feelings flow and they think out loud, and that's how they know what they think if they talk about it. And the other person is called the minimizer, and they process internally and they don't talk about it. And inevitably these 2 people fall in love, and one is the maximizer and one is the minimizer, and we call the maximizer the hailstorm and we call the minimizer the turtle. And in our workshops we tell the turtle what to do and the hailstorm what to do so they can connect.
Yeah.
I love that. I loved that example in Making Marriage Simple, that book of yours. I actually read it when Ben and I were in Mexico a year ago, and we were going through a power struggle phase in our relationship again, because, it comes in waves. And so I just binged that book for a few days. And it really helped. Yeah. Really helped.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah. And if couples get that, but it helps them do what we talked about earlier about partnership. It's like, both of us are now in our pain from childhood, and mine's this and yours is that, but it's basically the same pain. We didn't get a need met. So then is where you become partners. So you start talking, and if you can do it by yourself, that's great. If you can't, it's a good time to get a consultation. If that's not enough, going into therapy, because you have to meet the need or it'll show up over and over and over again until it's met. And so you have to decide, do we want to get through this, or do we just willing to live in this nightmare every time it comes up?
Yeah. When I was doing, I was telling you guys about this before we started recording for everybody about some of the esoteric training that I had done. And one of the teachings we had was around actually 4 stages of relationship, where the 3rd stage is dead zone and the 4th stage is true partnership. And that dead zone is where a lot of people end up, because, you know, they have gone through the power struggles for so long, but they've resigned themselves. So maybe they haven't left the relationship physically, but they've left it emotionally, or they've just sort of given up and they've decided to live lives separately, but together. Yeah. And so that's where, you know, relationships kind of just go to their end days, but they don't actually.
We call that the parallel marriage.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I think that what you guys are speaking of is really coming towards true partnership and allowing your power struggle to give you insight so that you can actually help each other mature and be more grown up together, because we come in with some of these wounds that we might not even realize we have yet. And so we're sort of supporting each other in feeling safer, feeling more secure. But I think that for some couples, as soon as they hit the power struggle, they think, there's something wrong with this relationship. It's not supposed to be this way. Either one person is like, I don't believe that conflict is supposed to be in the relationship, or relationships aren't supposed to be hard. So it's kind of rare that both want to do the work.
Yeah, we talk about at the altar when you go, you and I are one, that both people are thinking, and I'm the one. Because you're certainly going to want to love me, right?
Yeah.
Because we're at the altar.
Yeah.
So you and I are one.
And you me.
But I'm the one. But he's thinking that. And then you get home and you go, but wait. I thought you meant me.
It was about me.
No, it's about me.
Yes. Till it becomes about us.
Yeah. Or taking turns.
Well, that's in us.
Because like one of the things, I'm going to jump into a little idea without a question, but one of the things I love for any couples that are sort of like haven't quite connected as much as they'd like, we suggest they every month, at the beginning of the month, they take a deep breath, and on the odd days of the month, 1, 3, 5, 7, one partner takes responsibility for going to bed with the 2 of you connected.
Yeah.
And on the even days of the month, the other person, it's their responsibility to do something before you turn out the light and go to sleep, where you are feeling connected. Getting a poem or a little flower for your partner, or a little chocolate cookie, or say, honey, would you like me to rub your feet for 5 minutes? Or is there anything today that I could have done better? Or anyway, it's you figure it out, but you have to do your part 50-50.
If there's been an unresolved issue during the day, it's my responsibility on my day to be sure to invite that conversation with Helen and work that issue through before you go to sleep, so you don't go to bed. And it's like the biblical thing. I think it's a biblical thing, is don't go to bed mad. From don't let the sun go down on your wrath.
Right.
Is a statement in one of the Psalms. So that and that's a really good psychological advice. Because if you go to bed mad, you go to bed with cortisol running through your neural system, and running through your blood system, and it's going to disturb your sleep. It's going to give you bad dreams because your brain's trying to figure this out. And so forth. So, but if you resolve it, then you go to sleep with endorphins in your bloodstream. And if you hug on the way to sleep, you get a little oxytocin added to all that, and you feel bonded and connected. You have a different set of dreams.
Actually, the sciences have, for the first time about 9 months ago, documented that healthy relationships, for people that have them, they do not get sick as often as people in toxic relationships, and they live longer. And that's because the lower brain, where you're mad or anxious and just stuff it down, or you shout and scream or whatever, but if you live in the lower brain, adrenaline and cortisol flows through your bloodstream, and it makes you sick. More than others. And if you use sentence stems where you dialogue, it puts you in the upper brain where you release acetylcholine, norepinephrine, dopamine, and these are neurochemicals that give you a healthy body. And what we're saying today, it strengthens your immune system to help fight off the COVID-19 virus.
Yeah, and it's exciting to be able to say that is not something we just came up with, but there's now a lot of scientific documentation about the contribution, as Helen said, of a safe and healthy environment because of the neurochemistry that it produces, or immune strengthening, and that negative energy, cortisol and adrenaline, actually assault the immune system and therefore makes it weaker, so that you're more vulnerable to receiving to COVID or whatever else might be, even colds and whatever else might be floating around. So it's sort of interesting over the years to learn that we're working at the very edge of human, what would you call it? At the very edge of human health and well-being is the quality of relationship.
It's a new discovery.
Yeah, which is so funny too, that it's such a new discovery, because I think it's so obvious to you guys and so many of us that relationships are at the heart of everything for us. And they are the last thing that we have and the first thing that we have to hold on to.
I love that. The first thing we have and the last thing we have is relationship. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're an artist.
I just happened to be married to someone for whom he calls them downloads. Like, it's been so special to be his partner, because he'll wake and he'll go, "Oh, Helen, I have another download." And he goes to the computer and blah, 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 blah. And I have brought up a lot of, "Hey, Harville, why don't we do so-and-so?" And he goes and puts it in the system.
Yeah.
But he is a genius theory developer.
Well, but all the content comes through you.
I do a lot of the content, but then he organizes, and I mean, I'll just sort of, anyway, he's the genius.
Yeah.
You're both magical genius.
And I'm a genius at spotting a genius. I after my first divorce, I thought, well, with the second.
What do you mean your first divorce?
I mean, actually, my only divorce. Well, we almost divorced. We almost divorced the second time. But after my first divorce, I thought, listen, I ain't taking chances. I'm going to propose to the next one. And it's hard. Marriage is hard. But we're in the relationship of our dreams. Sometimes it takes a while for some, but I am just madly in love with him. Just madly in love. And we're also an example of the hopeless couple.
And that's
we did announce to the world in 1998 or 1999 that we were divorcing. We told our family, and we added a little bit more. I got a calendar and started doing zero negativity at the end of the day. And he put that in the system.
Yeah. And I think what we've learned about having a relationship of our dreams is not that we live in a state of ecstasy all the time. And finally, I figured out, both from our experience and from reading, is that there's no way you can live in ecstasy all the time. That's like having an orgasm all the time. Where you live is before orgasm and after orgasm. And then sometimes you don't want to have sex. But then it's so, but if you have a way to reconnect, if you get disconnected, the relationship of your dreams is one that works. It's not one that's ecstatic all the time, but one that works, so that you know you can count on. There's an element of predictability and reliability that you can count on something, which is your partner's going to be there to work out whatever happens.
Actually, I feel in ecstasy all the time.
You feel in ecstasy?
I mean, I really do.
Okay.
I know if there's a blip and we stumble, I know we're going to get back. and back. So I am in ecstasy almost all the
So
time.
you don't
which is
lose your
new.
ecstasy during the blip?
No.
Oh, I
really
do.
don't. Yeah.
I'm a turtle when
Yeah.
there's a blip. I have to say, oh damn, there we go again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I have to go.
And I go, well, I bet in an hour we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I read your work and when we did our workshop with you, for a few times there, I was like, maybe I'm the turtle. Like my husband, Ben, is more the one who keeps quiet. He doesn't bring as many issues and things like that. But actually I'm a catastrophizer. So I'm more like Harville, like I'm like, shut down. I don't want this.
I could see you as being the turtle when I remember meeting you and your husband.
Uh-huh.
He's the
Is that what
maximizer.
Is that what you figured out? You are the turtle?
You know, it feels like it's in waves because like I am the catastrophizer. Like I immediately, if we have a conflict, I'm like, this isn't going to work. Oh my gosh, we're going to get divorced. We shouldn't have gotten married. And I just kind of want to retreat and run away. But he stays calm. He's just like, it's fine, babe. We're allowed to have conflict. Everything's good. I love you. We're not going anywhere. You're not getting out of this. And I'm like, this is really bad. And he's like, no, it's fine. So I guess I always assumed that I was the hailstorm because I'm like big and loud and he's just calm. But I think that I misperceived it.
Yeah.
And also we're both, because it's built into the autonomic nervous system, because you can be on the sympathetic side and things are very intense there, or you could be on the parasympathetic side and things are very quiet there.
Mm-hmm.
And we flip back and forth because that's how our neural system is constructed. So it could be that you respond one way when you're in conflict, and when you're not in conflict, you may go to the other side of your autonomic
But see,
nervous system.
Ben and I are the same.
Yeah.
Either the two of you are upset and go, it'll be okay, honey.
Yeah.
You know, let's check in again in 4 hours. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, it really sparked my memory when you said that, because I was like, oh, I can see a reflection here of our patterns, and I think it's so brilliant that we always attract our opposite in that way.
Yeah.
See, that's what people need to get.
Mm-hmm.
That nature is dyadic,
Mm-hmm.
up, down, in, out, high, low, hot, cold, and dark, light. And when you're drawn to someone and fall in love, instead of being like you, there are a lot of ways they're not like you, because we believe, for people who study quantum theory, the particle wave duality. Life, nature is a lot of particles, and life is a lot of energy in a lot of ways. And the fundamental unit in quantum physics is the particle wave duality. But there are other ways to say it, that nature is dyadic, hot, cold, in, out. So anyway, and we're all meant to be in relationship. And inevitably we're in relationship with someone who's our other part of the dyad.
Yes. Yeah.
We've been looking at quantum field theory
for 20 years.
For 20 years. And in this book, we decided that it's too complicated to go into now, but we decided that we would, we discovered that therapy, unbeknownst to most therapists, is rooted in physics. And it comes from physics into philosophy, then philosophy to psychology, and from psychology to the practice of therapy. And that the physics that most therapy in the past 150 years since Freud is rooted in was classical physics, which had to do with particle-like behavior. The atom, Newton said the atom, everything is made of atoms. And these atoms are all bumping around like balls on a billiard table, and they're not connected to each other. So that's the separate self. And so we all grew up in Western culture being an individual, being separate, being autonomous, independent, and self-sufficiency. But we've discovered over the years in working with couples is that's the problem, is you want to be a separate self and you want to be a separate self, but you want a relationship and you can't do it that way. It just doesn't work. And that if you look at the world through quantum field theory, you're not separate self anyway. You are intricately, cosmically connected all the time. And And if you feel like you're separate, it's because you're mad at each other. And when you're mad, you feel like a particle. And when you're connected, you feel like a wave.
Mm.
So that particle wave duality is descriptive of everything in nature, which then Helen says, all the things she's saying about up and down, right and left, hot and cold, that polarity is there. And if you accept that, then you know there's always a tension.
Mm-hmm.
But the tension doesn't have to be conflict.
Mm-hmm.
The tension could be creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you choose creativity with the polarity, then you'll get something new. If you choose conflict, you'll just keep what you've got, which is old. And that this is now rooted in the best science human beings have ever invented, called quantum physics.
I love that you mentioned that choice toward conflict or creativity. It's been something that I've been observing a lot lately, observing especially people in the media who, do really wild and crazy things or engage in really big battles. There's a lot of people are talking about this new documentary right now called Tiger King, where this guy,
I don't know what it is though, but it is on the news all the time.
It is crazy. It's basically this guy who was in Florida who built a zoo, kind of semi-illegal, and had all of these tigers. And then this other woman who also had basically a tiger zoo, but she called hers a rehabilitation center. And so, but they were basically doing the same things, but one of them was taking a holier than thou approach. And one of them was, more outwardly about, profit and fame. But these two characters who are real characters, they went at each other with this battle for like a decade. They both had set up their own TV shows to attack each other. They had created campaigns, they had built websites, and they spent all of this energy on fighting this war. And I kept thinking, wow, I wish I had as much energy as they did, because I could channel that into creating. Like, they have such an ability to create, to follow through. And so I think that when we're engaging in these battles, we can really look at where else could this energy be spent, and how amazing is it that I have that energy, but can I use it in a way that is healthy for me and possibly even healing for me and my partner, rather than turning it inward.
How beautiful, how beautiful. We talk about shifting from judgment to curiosity, and converting frustrations into requests.
Yes, I love
that. And there's a way you make a request, which is a kind tone of voice. You're succinct. You asked for an appointment and said, may I make a request of you? And when your partner's available, you can ask kindly. So you don't have to stuff down the problems, but it doesn't. Once you blame, shame, or criticize, your partner's not even in the room. They're going, I'm getting out of here.
And you sent them out, because you said, don't be here, don't be who you are and be here, be somebody else and you can be here. And that's what shame and blame and criticism is. It's interesting, since we mentioned the quantum stuff, to discover as we got deeply into this, that the feature that quantum physicists say describes nature is creativity. And that one day I was reading that, and I thought, I almost cursed, like, hot damn, creativity is the fundamental feature, because it gives birth to all forms. Just think about how many things there are in the universe. Well, all those arose out of the quantum field. So creativity is it. So anytime you go into conflict, you're actually going against the fundamental feature of nature, which is creating out of polarity something new. So conflict is anti-natural, and creativity, you join nature's forces. Once that got clearer to us, it was like, well, that makes a lot of sense out of what we experience clinically, is that people who become partners in the project of co-creating a relationship in which they both feel safe, ultimately restart their developmental process, they get their needs met, and they create great marriages. And those who fight go into what you talked about earlier as the dead zone. And there's another group of couples go in the hot zone, which is, we're going to fight forever. And then there's those who say, I'm never going to fight again, just not going to engage, and so forth. So that polarity shows up even in the way people resolve conflict. Some go into the particle-like thing of, I'm just going to, sit here frozen. And another group go into the wave-like thing and say, I'm going to fight till death, till death do we part. And I'm going to die first, or either you're going to die first. One of us is going to win. Whoever dies first will win, or something like that. And it's really crazy, but that's what we do. And it's all trying to get somewhere that you can't get that way.
Yeah. Well, what that leads me to is this concept of criticism, because I've, written a lot about criticism and how to reframe it. And what I find interesting is that people say that they want to have their needs met by their partner, but when you tell them that they can't criticize their partner, they will fight you to the death on how valid and important and necessary criticism is, because there is such thing as constructive criticism, and my partner really needs to hear this. So let's break that down a little bit. Why no criticism? What can we do instead, really? And let's talk about what's behind criticism and why it really doesn't help.
You want to go first?
Because if you criticize your partner or anyone, they shut down. Mm-hmm. And they can't help it. The lower brain is reactive. And and if there's a negative look in your eye, as you're saying, a criticism, or a negative tone of voice, or any intensity, if it's a criticism, it often is like a critique, like you ought to change this. Mm-hmm. And the lower brain goes, I don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. And they cannot help it. The lower brain is reactive, and then they can't hear. Mm-hmm. And then they shut down, and they're out of there. Like they can't internalize it. So that's why if you instead say you're critical of your partner, but you convert criticism to a request and use the process, you say, honey, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about that's bothering me a little bit. Could I have an appointment to tell you what it is? Sometime you're available to hear me process.
What about
this.
now?
Oh, okay. Well, it has to do with your mustache and when we kiss.
So it has to do with my mustache
so,
when we kiss.
Anyway, and it would just
feel more about that.
It would just feel better if you Anyway, but the thing is rather than sending a message that's a criticism, you use the safe conversation or the Imago process where you ask for an appointment. You see if they're available to hear something you're frustrated about. Mm-hmm. And you ask nicely with a kind tone of voice, nice look in your eye. Mm-hmm. And the other person can go, Helen, I'm doing an interview. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to disappoint this woman. I don't want to hear about your frustration right now. And so, but how about 3 hours? How about 8 o'clock tonight? I'll hear your whatever. Mm-hmm. And wait till they're available to hear it. You just don't break into someone's life and criticize them. You ask for an appointment. You tell what the appointment's about. And once they say yes, then you say, here is the thing I don't like. And instead of that, I wish you would do this. Yeah. And you tell them what you wish it was, like a more nicely shaved mustache. I'm making that up because I've never heard about that. But you need to shift from judgment to curiosity and wonder why they're that way, and then learn to ask for what you want. Yeah. And so don't stay with the frustration or the criticism, but ask for if they did something differently, then you wouldn't be feeling critical.
Yeah, and I don't want to underline something that you were saying about in your question, why no criticism? Mm-hmm. And just to underline what Helen said, your partner can't change if they're criticized. Yeah. But you think if you criticize them, they'll change. And the reason, and it's not that they don't want to, they can't, because their brain says, I'm now in a dangerous place. I have to get out my defenses. Mm-hmm. And my defenses may be to attack you, because you criticize me, I criticize you too, or my defense may be get the hell out of there. And sometimes there's a third option that can be done by the person who really wants to do something. So they may do a new behavior, but they'll do it as a defense. They will bring you flowers or they will call you often, but it's to keep you from attacking them. Mm-hmm. So they're not changing. Yeah. They're just better protecting themselves. Mm-hmm. So you think you may be getting something, but all you're getting is the trophy. I mean, it's not even a trophy. All you're getting is a defense mm-hmm. that looks like a gift mm-hmm. because you can't really give to somebody you're scared of. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the brain just doesn't work that way. When the brain is scared, the brain's going to protect itself in whatever way works. Mm-hmm. So criticism is simply is also an annihilation of the other person. So the way you get change is affirming them. And what Helen was saying, ask them for what you want. Mm-hmm. And tell them what it would look like if they got it and how much you would appreciate it if it did. Yes. Then they can say, oh, well, you're not killing me. Now it can be something different from you because I know you want something, but you're not making me bad in order to get it.
Mm-hmm. And if I could comment, if anyone watching this can write this down. Mm-hmm. It's not what you say, but how you say it. How you say it, yeah. So you have to learn to say what you think mm-hmm. in a way that your partner can hear it. And that's what Making Marriage Simple is about, and Imago and Safe Conversations. Mm-hmm. We teach you how to say anything that you feel in a way that your partner will feel motivated to change.
Mm-hmm. It's an important distinction. I remember I see that on your no negativity calendar. We have your zero negativity challenge calendars because we went to your Getting the Love You Want workshop, which for anybody watching, highly, highly recommend that you go to at least one of those workshops. And then also the Getting the Love You Want workbook. I feel like that could be a good entry point for couples who maybe want to learn how to engage a little bit deeper with each other in this work. But yeah, I really appreciate that you mentioned that it's how we say it, because I think that we can really say, well, I didn't mean it that way, so you shouldn't take it that way. And we really have to start to hear how our partner receives us is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And once you've done it badly, the brain doesn't care that you didn't mean it. Yeah. They're bleeding. Mm-hmm. And it's like too bad you didn't mean to cut me, but I'm bleeding. Mm-hmm. And so you have to not cut. That's the big thing, which means don't go negative. Mm-hmm. Look at your frustration and say, now, what do I want that I'm so frustrated? What do I want? If I got what I wanted, then I wouldn't be frustrated. So what would that be? Yeah. Well, it would be that next time he is late, he calls me 30 minutes ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Then I won't feel abandoned. I won't feel like he doesn't care if he just let me know he was going to be late. Usually it's that simple. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get to what specific behavior I need, it's like a catastrophe. Yeah. And it's because it's activating all those childhood memories mm-hmm. in which nobody was predictable or reliable.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're just about to wrap up here. We just have a few minutes left. So I just want to honor your time. I think it would be really nice to sort of wrap up with maybe just a little bit from both of you on addressing couples who are really excited about this work, and then maybe just a word of wisdom to that couple out there that one of them is not sure that, what they're dealing with is normal and the other person doesn't really want to do the work, and one of them really does. We have to say to those couples out there.
Okay. Yes.
Well, for someone who's wanting their partner to change, which is most of us, mm-hmm. The best thing, well, it doesn't help to get a relationship book and tell them what the book said, or without a relationship book, it doesn't help to advise them on what they need to do. It doesn't usually help to do things like that. It is great to go to a workshop, mm-hmm. anybody's workshop. Yeah. We have one. There's some others. But you would say to your partner, honey, my birthday's coming up in a month. And as a birthday gift, I would love us to go to a workshop because I want to see what I could be doing better. Mm. I just feel like the energy between us might be improved, and I think I have a role in it. Yeah. And I want to learn more about my part in what's not happening, what's not doing so well in our relationship. So as my birthday gift, I'd love that to be your gift or something like that. But you're not going to you might not be able to fix it by yourself. Mm-hmm. Go where someone can teach you both and tell your partner you're going to work on you.
Yeah.
Even though you're praying that your partners also. And they will do more. They'll work on themselves if they don't feel the energy of, I hope he's getting that point. Mm-hmm. Did you hear what he said? The speaker, did you hear what that speaker said? Yeah, that's what I've been telling you.
I heard it. Did you hear it?
That's the thought.
So I think the thing I like to say is that I think we figured out 3 non-negotiables for a thriving relationship. Mm-hmm. And one of them is that you actually do have to talk differently. Mm-hmm. That's the talking without criticizing, listening without judging, so you can connect beyond your differences. And difference is not going to go away, so just forget that. Mm-hmm. You just have to always deal with difference. And the way you do it determines whether it's polarization or whether it's creativity. And so you have to learn how to talk. And you can go to our website, harvillehelen.com, and get the dialogue process. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that we think is non-negotiable, and we put this in with great deliberation over a long period of time, is the zero negativity process. Mm-hmm. So if you can talk safely, and you can't talk safely unless you're zero negative, mm-hmm. but then we learned you can't just go zero negative, because that leaves a void. Yeah. The brain needs to know what to do. Mm-hmm. So if you say, don't be negative, that doesn't tell the brain to do anything. So it just goes then into, well, what in the hell then am I supposed to do? Well, what you're supposed to do is go and go what we call do affirmations. Mm-hmm. And affirmations are anything that affirms your partner as a human being who's decent and wonderful, and whoever he is or she is, even with all their warts and all, affirm them by paying attention, by appreciating them, by telling them, gosh, thank you for bringing me that cup of coffee that made me feel cared about and loved. Anything that or to say, let's have fun, let's take a walk, that means I'm affirming you, I want to be with you. Mm-hmm. So affirmation is absolutely the thing that has to fill the void when you take the negativity out. Mm-hmm. If you do those 3 things, we think you can't fail. Mm-hmm. Because if you're safe, you're going to do great things together. If you're not, you're going to do terrible things together. And so that is the one non-negotiable fundamental of safety. And those 3 practices create and sustain safety.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, you guys. This was such a fun interview. I feel like I could talk to you forever about all of this lovely stuff, but we're going to wrap it up here. And I'm going to add links to your website and to your books and your workshops and everything in the show notes so that everybody can find your work. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. The shade just happened to come down right now. That was just, it's an automatic thing.
Yeah, so. Keep the sun off the computer. Thank you so much for having us on.
To be with you.
And we hope to see you down the path.
Yes.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day, you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.